You've just stepped into the Midlife Revolution Unleashed, your space to ignite possibility, redefine purpose, and embrace the power that comes with age and experience. Co-hosted by yours truly, Coach Wayne.
And I'm Coach Stacey M. Lewis. We are two seasoned coaches focused on the midlife community of color. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. In a world that sometimes forgets the power and the wisdom that comes with age, we are here to ignite a revolution and rewrite the narrative of this incredible journey.
So, whether you're navigating your career, growing your business, rediscovering passions, or challenging the status quo, this is your space. So, buckle up. Let's dive into the Midlife Revolution Unleashed. Hey, we are back, and this is a momentous event for us on Midlife Revolution Unleashed. We are at our 60th episode, getting a little bit old or gray, as you might want to say, and this is our final episode for season 2. So we're going to make it a blast and have you all celebrate with us tonight. My name is Coach Wayne. I work with midlife men, making sure that their second half is their best half. And riding upside next to me is none other than the great Stacey M. Lewis. Coach Stacey, introduce yourself, mademoiselle.
Thank you so much, Coach Wayne. Welcome, everyone, to the Midlife Revolution Unleashed. It is always a joy, an honor, and a blessing to spend this time with you all, whether you are catching us live or the replay. We are celebrating episode 60. We are celebrating the conclusion of season 2, and we are celebrating the opportunity to have a special guest and continue to nurture. So I am Stacey M. Lewis. I am a nonprofit executive. I'm a midlife women's coach. I'm a lover of God and his people on most days, and I'm so excited to be here with these two gentlemen who I know are going to be gentlemen.
Yes,
Welcome
ma'am.
to the Midlife Revolution Unleashed. Coach Wayne, introduce our guest.
Absolutely. What a delightful pleasure. And this is a brother, a true brother that I've met over the last, I want to say we're going into 3 years or so, right, Coach Michael? And this is Coach Michael Taylor, an unapologetic optimist and passionate voice for empowering men and women over 50 to redefine aging and embrace their next chapter with purpose and passion. As the author of I Am Not Okay with Gray, this wonderful reading material here in my hand, he challenges outdated beliefs about growing older and inspires others to see aging as a time for reinvention, vitality, and joy. Coach Michael Taylor, indeed, welcome, my brother, on this stage. How are you?
It is my absolute joy being with you guys today. Of course, Wayne and I go back a minute, and he's a brother that I highly respect and love, and I'm just really excited about being on the program today.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're just so excited. We certainly want to welcome our listenership. Hi, Delane. It's always good to see you and have you supporting us. One of the interesting things as I was thinking about this topic, not only the title of your book, but also the reality of this beautiful season of life, of getting older and being able to choose how we look at this season, whether it be with a sense of chagrin or a sense of possibility. And I was reminded of one time when I was going to have my hair braided. And so for those of you that are just not aware about the hair braiding, some of it comes from my scalp, some of it came from the store. And so as I was going to make that purchase, I was talking with my girlfriend and I said, no, I want to make sure that I buy some gray so that it matches what is coming out of my head. And she was borderline appalled with, why would you buy gray? Why would you want to emphasize that? And in my line of work, where people are diagnosed with a devastating disease and often lose their hair, I'm grateful for my hair. And I am grateful for the grays. And I wanted to make sure that it wasn't, gray down here and then super shiny black down here. So for me, it was really a celebration. And it was interesting to have someone that I love and know well have just a contrasting view about, gray hair and what it represents. And so let's dive in.
Yeah. So, Stace, I am going through a transition now. And for the last, I don't know how long I've had a beard, but maybe 10 years ago, the beard started looking gray. And I wasn't having it, Stacey. I wasn't having it. And so I got a contract with Miss Clara, so that when people ask me, Wayne, how do you look so young? I show them my contract with Miss Clara. Right?
Okay. Audrey let you cheat in there a little bit then with Miss Clara. Okay, we're gonna keep going.
But for years, men and women have been dealing with the issue of looking your best self the way you interpret that to be, and feeling your best self the way you interpret that to be. And no shame in the game. We work out, we cut away here, we do all this stuff for that. And it's a challenge oftentimes in our society to equate youth with vigor, success, health, and that sort of thing. And to almost disband and shame in our society, not in other societies, apparently, folks as they age. And I like to say that rather than aging, we are saging. But I know in Coach Michael's book, the book that we're featuring today, I Am Not Okay with Gray, in the introductory chapter, in fact, in the foreword by Kevin Ross, the conversation comes up about our culture of disbanding and disregarding the older generation and people getting ill and not feeling fit and having energy as they get older. And so the question was, why would God do this after you've worked so long and hard? And Michael, you talked about it's not a God problem, it's a paradigm problem. Bust it up.
Well, let me share how the book came about. This is an interesting story. So a friend of mine was teasing me because I color my beard and my hair. And he says, Michael, man, why you do that? Why do you color your hair? And I immediately said, man, I'm not okay with gray. And as soon as I said it, I pulled out my phone and I made a little note. And I said, that's a really cool title for a book. It just sounded really cool. So what I normally do whenever I get an idea for a book, I'll just put it on my phone and come back to it later. Well, probably a year and a half, 2 years later, when I was getting ready to write my book, I pulled out my little phone and I went, I'm not okay with gray. It's time for that particular book. Now, when I say I'm not okay with gray, it has absolutely nothing to do with hair color. Gray is a mindset. We live in a society, as Wayne mentioned, that kind of demonizes getting older. But in reality, it's the belief systems of our culture that, we hear that as I get older, I'm going to, lose mobility. I'm going to, it's going to take me longer to heal. I'm going to slow down. I can't do the things that I used. And I completely disagree with that. Now, for me, I have made the decision that I am not going to wear gray until I turn 75 years old. For me, 75 to me symbolizes gray hair. Now, I'm 64. I honestly feel like I'm still in my 30s, with the exception of my knees. But but for the most part, at 64, I'm as happy and excited and energetic as I was when I was in my 30s. So for me, the gray simply represents, or the not keeping the gray simply represents the youth that I feel. I don't feel gray. So once again, the intention of this book was to simply give people a different way to view aging. Because unfortunately, too many times, when we hear getting older, we get scared. We go, oh my gosh, I've got less years ahead than I have behind me. But what people don't realize is that they're predicting in the next 20 to 30 years, the average lifespan is going to be 120 years old. Now, think about that. 120 years old. Now, most people, I always say that I have an intention, and that intention is to live to be at least 100 years old. That's my goal. I want to get to 3 digits. I want to say I'm 100 years old. That's just something I want to do. But the point is, you can't get there if you don't have the right mindset. And that's what this conversation is about. It's about setting the mindset to prepare you to set intentions to grow old with grace.
I love it. So cheers to Kenneth Dunner, who says, my knees are perky peeps, who also shared that he just turned 67 and is looking good with the gray. And I love what you just shared, Michael, because that indeed is the reality. It's a mindset. It is a mindset. And so for me, it was about embracing the who I am as I am right now. And I'll be honest and say that, the gentleman that was doing my hair at that time was very clear. He was like, A, you don't want to start coloring your hair because then you'll feel like you can never stop. And 2, he was like, it's not good for your hair, so don't do it. Right. So I was like, oh, okay. So now I really have a great opportunity not to do it. But what you said was just so very true, because it is a mindset. And as we embrace the mindset that getting older is the goal, right? That is the goal. Like you said, your goal is now the 3 digits. Getting older is the goal, but it's how we get there, both in our mind and our body, that is what we're talking about, right? What we think about getting older and how we then behave based on our thoughts about getting older.
Absolutely. And again, we hear that, as we get older, they'll say, well, my body's going to start breaking down and everything is going to start, my body's going to atrophy and my mind's going to not be as sharp. It's not aging that's doing that. It's the fact that you're no longer paying attention to the things that you want to do, and you've accepted what the media says your body's going to do. And the mindset is, I expect decline.
Yes.
So I'm saying, don't expect decline. Set intentions. Become committed to making sure that you are doing whatever you can to move ahead. Now, again, coloring my hair actually has nothing to do with vanity. I'm not trying to look more handsome. But it's just, once again, for me, it's how I feel. I feel in every fiber of my being that, again, I'm still in my 30s. And so that just the idea, the visual of the gray, it's incongruent with how I feel. So I want to keep that congruency and keep this excitement and passion and so forth, all the feeling that I have. And again, I do that by coloring the gray.
Yeah. Michael, in the book, you talked about the midlife crisis. And here is a tag that we have given to a normal period in our lives. And, we talked also about at 40, when you think about it, some people call it getting older, and we are aging, getting older, but it's not old age when you think that it's technically halfway there, meaning you have another potential 40 years ahead of you. So you're really at midlife. And I think that this is an opportunity to have leverage since you have 40 years of experience, 40 years of knowledge. So now you can put that together and have 40 years of wisdom moving forward. You talked about midlife crisis and getting through that. And you talked about the roller coaster. Tell us a little bit more about that, Michael. And in particular, tell a little bit about your story that you reinvented yourself going through that very roller coaster so that those folks listening to us can have some stuff to take away and be hopeful.
So at the age of 23, I was living the American dream. I had the house, the wife, the 2.5 kids, the vacations, the 401k. And by society standards, I was pretty successful at 23. Within about a 6.5-year time frame, my American dream turned into the American nightmare as I went through a divorce, bankruptcy, foreclosure, a deep, deep state of depression. I was actually homeless for 2 years, living out of my car. Now, I'm 30 years old or so, and I've basically lost everything. And so as I was sitting there trying to figure out what the heck had happened, I received a miracle. I was sitting up late one night because I was too depressed to sleep. And I was sitting at the edge of my bed, looking across the room at my bookshelf, when I happened to notice that every book on my bookshelf had something to do with getting rich or making money. And as I looked at those books, this question just popped in my head. Michael, what if you took all the energy and effort you've used in trying to get rich and simply figure out how to be happy? And as simplistic as that question may sound, it literally changed and saved my life in an instant. I can't explain it, but all of a sudden my depression lifted and I had this amazing clarity that I was going to be able to rebuild my life and it was going to become extraordinary. And I had absolutely no evidence to support that. A part of me intuitively knew that I was going to be able to rebuild my life. Now, as a result of asking that question, I stopped reading books on getting rich and making money. I started reading books on psychology and philosophy and metaphysics and personal development. And I began what I'll call my journey of transformation. And that journey of transformation is an inside job. One of my favorite quotes is, if you don't go within, you always go without. And so I began that inner journey of transformation. And it began with me being courageous enough, first of all, to go to therapy and to start addressing some of the emotional baggage that I was carrying that I was not even aware of. That was one of the first things I did. But then again, I started doing all these workshops and seminars and listening to audio programs. And interestingly enough, as I was doing this, as I was going to these workshops and seminars, I noticed that in most cases, I was the only man of color in the room. And so a couple of times, I had to question myself. I said, wait, should I be here? Where the brothers at? I was like, where the brothers at? But then what I realized was I was healing. I was growing. I was changing. Didn't matter what the people around me looked like because of my commitment to my own growth. And so as a result of going on that journey, and again, it's a journey that I'm still on today, some 30 years later. But as a result of going on that journey, I created the life that intuitively I've always known was possible. Living a life of possibilities, of passion and purpose. And so it is my absolute joy sharing the lessons that I learned along the way. And that's why I write books.
Powerful. Stacey, we had discussed, and to Michael's point, that there's some things that from time to time hold us back from, as people say, aging gracefully, but from breaking through and moving to the next level, perhaps their best level after midlife. What are some of the things, Stacey, that your experience personally and with the people that you are coaching, the women, that gets in the way of moving through that barrier?
There are a number of things, yet listening to Michael, and thank you so much, Michael, for sharing your story, your experience, and where you gleaned your wisdom from and saw the possibility. Because I think possibility is one of the areas that at least a number, if not all of the midlife women of color that I've coached struggle with. There's data that talks about how anywhere from 60 to 70% of women are living beneath their possibility. And for women of color, it's even more so. And so that mindset around possibility is critical. I think the other thing I would add is as we talk about aging and gray hair, although that's not the focus of the book, one thing that women often have to deal with, in particular women in the workplace, women in leadership, is the perception of others on their capacity, their possibilities. And as I talk to and coach, I've coached a few women to stop dyeing their hair, not because I'm offended or I feel like you shouldn't dye, but because they really didn't want to dye their hair, but they were doing so based on the experience they were having with other people's perceptions of who they were and what their capacities are as they age. And so the gray hair was giving others the cue that they were getting older, and therefore they were making this move that they didn't want to make because of the perceptions and the experience with others, and how there was the mindset of the possibility, not that I'll succeed anyhow, but the possibility that it will hold me back, that others seeing me as getting older maybe, will hold me back. And so I think I expanded the question a little bit, but that would be my answer. What about you, Wayne?
Well, you're talking about what we call a limiting belief or beliefs. The fact that we put these excuses, these barriers, and oftentimes we project it on somebody else. The society says, the people around us say, oh, family, the expectations, the job. And part of it, I think, is about asking, and Michael, in your book, you talk about it, about the ability to continue your evolution by asking one simple question. The question was, how can I become better? My tagline is bigger, better, bolder, and so I think a lot of what those listening should be challenged with is to start reframing getting older by asking more powerful questions. What advantages do I have having been on the planet 4 decades? What advantages do I have in terms of leverages? How can I be bigger, better, bolder? How can I stop smalling up myself and playing into the game of somebody else's expectations or lack thereof for me, and start truly fulfilling and breaking through? Michael.
Well, again,
thank you, Stacey, for the question.
I think it comes back to my point at the beginning, which is the mindset. Most people, I'm going to assert, if you ask them if they want to live to be 100, they would probably say no. And the reason they would say that is because they're afraid that they're going to be incapacitated. Maybe I'm going to be in a wheelchair, or I'm on drugs or whatever. So the fear of growing older keeps people from investing in becoming older. And so the point of coaching is to provide insights. And Wayne, you just mentioned a powerful word, which is beliefs. A coach's job is to help you change your beliefs about what's possible. And so for most people, again, they think that, okay, once I get to 60, 75, we have this thing called retirement, and I'm just going to wait for retirement. And, but have you ever seen the statistics of what happened to people after they retire? It's not a pretty picture. It's not a pretty picture. So what I promote is this whole idea about, once again, possibilities and us setting intentions to be, to do, to have anything we set our minds to. And so from a age perspective, as mentioned, if you look at over the last 100 years, how lifespan has continued to increase, it's only going to continue. If you look at what's going on, a lot of people are terrified of AI. AI is now creating things that's going to help people extend their lives. As mentioned, they're predicting that within the next 30 years, 120 is going to be average. You'll be able to live to 120. And think about that. If I'm going to live to be 120, I'm only halfway through right now. I'm just getting warmed up. So I'm like, wow, man, think about it. So once again, the mindset for me is think in terms of what's possible, not what the media has said is possible, but what you set an intention to achieve.
I
Powerful.
love what Delane just said, because it is right in alignment with what Coach Michael just said, right? That's retirement from life, not retirement from a job, right? If you have that mindset that's saying like, I'm going to retire and then I'll just kind of sit back and let life pass me by, or I'm going to retire and my knees are going to hurt and I'm going to be on all kind of medications and I won't be able to travel the way I designed. All of that is going to be true. And so what clients are telling themselves is critical. The story, the record. I'm 62. I always use the analogy and the imagery of an LP, right? We know that you put that record on the record player and you jam into your songs. And if the record has a scratch in it, you hear that flaw over and over and over again. And our mindsets are like that. And so if the narrative, the story that you're telling yourself is getting older is where my possibilities dwindle, or getting older is where life is on the decline. Unfortunately, that will be true. And so I love what you're bringing out in your book and in your energy. As I think it was Kenneth said, you're looking like 45.
Black don't crack. I had to say that. I'm sorry. I had to throw that out there.
It's all right. We agree. But it is the truth, right? That we, as coaches, the goal is really bringing out the wealth of wisdom and knowledge and reigniting that possibility that I believe is really within everyone. It is about what we're focused on. Are we focused on the fact that we're getting older and our hair is going to be gray and it means, we're going to retire and life is kind of going to be over? Or are we saying, I'm getting older and yes, I'm going to retire. And yes, I'm taking care of my knees and my weight and all of that now, so that when I'm 82, watch out, world, watch out.
I unfortunately can't remember the study, but a while back, I read that there was this study done where they gathered a group of maybe 50, 60, 70-year-olds and put them in a retreat setting and divided them. One group was exposed for a few days to words like gray, arthritis, pain, older, that sort of stuff. And the other group had neutral words or empowering words. And after a while, the group that was exposed to the gray and, pain and all that stuff started moving more slowly and even bent over and apparently aged psychologically. Chronologically, they were the same age. They had the same time frame in that experimental space. But one group, based on the words that were exposed to them, and that they receive to be true of their description and their own lot in life actually started behaving congruently with an older group, so to speak. And that's very powerful.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and, it's been said that the mind cannot distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined.
Yeah.
So if you vividly imagine yourself as you're getting older in a positive light, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah.
If you vividly see yourself as getting older and, degrading and going the opposite direction, that's what's going to show up in your life. And it does come back to mindset and how we think, because thoughts become things. And as we're thinking about getting older, it's the attitude that we have, and even more so, the feeling. That's the key. If we have this feeling of optimism, of hope, it creates energy in the body, and the body responds. But if we're fearful, that energy is negative, and it's going to show up in negative aspects of your body: dis-ease, discomfort, negative emotion, negative feeling. So it's important that we maintain this positive energy, if you will. Now, my tagline is, I am an irrepressible optimist with a passion for the impossible. That's my tagline. Now, what kind of energy comes from that?
Mm-hmm.
That positive energy. And boy, does it fuel me to do some amazing things.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Stacey,
Clearly, those in our listening audience are in full agreement with you, Coach Michael. Full agreement. Yeah. Go ahead, Wayne. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, I was just going to say that, that on my platform, one of the things that I talk about is when I see folks not achieving their fullest potential, behind the scenes, it comes down to what I call the Paul syndrome. They don't think it's possible, which is learned hopelessness, right? They don't think they have the ability, which is learned helplessness, and they don't think they're worthy. They don't think that they're deserving, right? And when we age, we own and hold on to one or all of those. We figure oftentimes, because of the environment that we have, that cast to the side the elderly or those who are aging. I mean, right now, Stacey, we had a show that we were talking about is the only time, unprecedented time in our history where we have 5 generations intermingling in the workplace. And what's happening as a result is we're seeing where there's just a difference of how we do things. And oftentimes the older generation is saying to the younger generation, boy, if I had your youth and your energy, what I would be able to do. And the youth or younger generations are saying, man, you're too old. Get out of the way. So unfortunately, we buy into this false narrative about what aging should be in our environment, in our community, in our society. So we have these learned helplessness, I'm not able to, and I'm not enough. Why? Because oftentimes we're comparing ourselves to social media, or the hype that's given to us by others, rather than digging deeply, changing the mind to a growth mindset and recognizing that we have the ability to be and do anything that we truly want to do. Michael, you talked about your knees, but maybe you can't run a mile at a certain level, but that doesn't mean you can't swim and get the same fitness level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we've heard forever this whole idea that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Absolutely.
An old dog can learn new tricks if he's willing to commit to it. He's just got to make the commitment that he wants to learn some new tricks.
Or if the treats are good, I have a dog. So when the treats are good, right? He's an older dog. He'll learn some new tricks, right? And it is in this analogy, the treats are that life of possibility.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the driver, the life of possibility, the life of being able to pursue dreams and heartfelt desires. Those are the treats. And that's where we learn to do some new tricks.
But the data also shows that our most productive time frame in our lives is in our 70s. Now, think about that. Our most productive years are in our 70s. Second, we're 60s. And I say one of the reasons that is if we live just an average life, we go through life, and by then, we've had the kids, we've done all the stuff, hopefully we set ourselves up with a little bank account so we can do some things. But for me, I think as you get older, I think what we do is we live life backwards. And here's what I mean. When we're young, we're partying, baby. We're having a good time. And then, we get around 35 and 40 and say, oh, okay, it's time to slow down and get serious about life. And then we get a job, maybe the wife, the house, and so forth. And then as we get older, we start going into this idea about this thing called retirement. Well, see, for me, I say, do it all early. One of the things that I'm really proud of myself for doing is at a very early age, I had a plan. And that plan was, number one, I wanted to be a dad. I wanted to be a dad. And I wanted to find the perfect partner. Now, I happened to get divorced when I was, as mentioned, 29. But I still had that commitment that I was going to be a great father and I was going to be a good husband. So I did find the love of my life. I've been blissfully married for the past 23 years or so.
Amen.
But my commitment was, these are some things that I wanted to accomplish in my life. And I've basically done everything I set out to do in my 20s. Became a good father, been a great husband, written books, and all of that. One of the things I think that's missing for us and why people get stuck in later years of life, because they don't have a plan. They don't know or have not set any goals, anything to strive for. And so, are you guys familiar with the be-do-have triangle?
I am not.
The be-do-have triangle. Here's the key. This I believe this is the key to a happy life. The be-do-have. Most of us believe. So imagine a triangle. Okay. So at the top of the triangle, we're going to put the word do. Okay. On the bottom left of the triangle, we're going to put have. And on the right, we're going to put be. So most people, what they do is, if I do this, I can have this and I'll be this. Okay. So if I do this thing called get a job, I'm going to have some money and then I'll be happy. Okay. But we put all the emphasis on doing stuff. The key is if we put be at the top, if I be happy, I can do whatever I want and I can have whatever I want. But our society gets it backwards. It doesn't teach us how to be. It's always focusing on what to do. Nothing wrong with doing stuff. Nothing wrong with having stuff. But doing stuff and having stuff is never going to make you happy. Happiness is an inside job. You got to be willing to do the inner work to be happy. And so if we'll put our focus on being happy and the feeling, because everything we do we do in an attempt to be happy. Think about it. Why do we go to work? We go to work to make money. Why do we make money? Because we want to buy stuff. Why do we buy stuff? Because we want to be happy. Right? So there's this, we get caught in this trap, but we forget that the beingness, it's what's truly important. And again, I chased money for a long time. It wasn't until I learned to be happy first that I could attract the money that I'd always dreamed of.
Yeah, powerful.
Curtis said, yes, sir.
Yes,
and there's definitely some basic instruction before leaving Earth foundation in there of us prioritizing the being, not the doing. It is not our works, right, that are going to do it. It's really in us being who we authentically and purposefully are that is opening the door to the having.
Yeah. And in that process, if we do it properly, purpose will come to the surface.
Absolutely.
Purpose will show up. When we learn to be authentically happy, purpose will show up, because what that does is it helps us tap into the unique gifts and talent that we already have.
Yes.
Where does the happiness come from? It comes from expressing those things. It comes from expressing that purpose, that joy, that passion, or whatever. But it's still about the beingness of expressing that purpose.
Yeah. You know, the VIP framework, which my entire business is founded on, talks about living in congruence with your values, your core values, having a sense of self or identity that's in alignment with that. And when those two are coupled together, your purpose jumps out at you. Your purpose finds you. Your purpose is a divine assignment. And so when people get to that place where they start transforming and seeing themselves happy, seeing themselves abundant, seeing themselves healthy, seeing themselves safely, securely married and all that stuff, when they start owning that identity and living in truth, authentically with their values, they find purpose and fulfillment and not the other way around. So I'm in total agreement with you, Coach Michael. Stacey,
Sir?
how do we, as we get on the last furlong of this run, how do we help our listening audience to transition into a place where, you know, how do they develop into this place of security and safety and feeling better about themselves as coaches?
Yeah, I believe step one is always be honest with yourself and where you are right now, right? We cannot heal what we don't reveal. And oftentimes those limiting beliefs, the mindset that is holding us back is so tamped down by life that we actually stop. We don't even know what's happening. We don't really know what's happening. Many have lost touch with who they are, where they are, and why. And so I believe that one of the first steps is to really be honest with yourself, not from a judgmental standpoint. That's never going to help us move forward, but to ask some of these great questions that we've heard in this conversation today, and to really let those answers rise. Give them some space, whether it be on a piece of paper or in a little voice note, so that you can really begin to deal with where you are from a place of authenticity and start to identify what the vision is based on your current values of where you want to go. And then it's a step-by-step process, right? That's the beauty of coaching, to help you engage those steps.
Powerful. Thank you, Stacey. Coach
Absolutely.
Michael, before we, get going and talk about our end of season opportunities for folks, what are your last words? What would you have others in your coaching space do so that they too can be where you are in terms of the mindset as they age?
Well, for me personally, the most powerful thing that I've ever done was address some childhood wounds that I didn't recognize were impacting my life as an adult. Because I possibly had the worst childhood you could ever imagine. I experienced every imaginable type of child abuse. And it wasn't until I did this workshop with a guy named John Bradshaw called Healing Your Inner Child. And it was in that workshop that I was able to learn, number one, how I had disconnected from my emotions, disconnected from my feelings. And so I processed everything from the neck up in my head. And so it wasn't until I healed that childhood trauma that I could be free. Because I remember when I first started this process, I was really into the motivational stuff. Les Brown, Anthony Robbins. I did the Anthony Robbins walking on hot coals barefooted. I was NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. But see, all of that was intellectual. But it wasn't until I got into my heart.
Yeah.
and healed that trauma, that pain, that I really became free. So if nothing else, my recommendation is to everyone to just make sure that you're in touch with your primary emotions and are able to identify and express them in a healthy manner.
Wow. Stacey, I told you Michael is the man. Michael is the man. I love it. I love it. And what
That
a way.
is what he said. He said, Michael is the man. He's like,
This
we're
is
going to
the
talk
book.
about this. We got to have the man.
Yeah. I'm Not Okay with Gray, How to Create an Exceptional Life After 50. And the author, Coach Michael Taylor. Michael has about 11 or so other books out there, all great reads.
16.
And
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he said he has 16, 17 books.
16 more.
Okay. And I know you spoke to me a week ago. There's one coming off the press now, and another one getting pressed. So I need your help, Michael. You've been a coach in so many ways and a wonderful accountability partner, but I got to get a little bit of a whipping to get mine out. So, Stacey, thank you, Michael. Coach Michael Taylor. How do folks reach out to you to connect?
Simplest way is on screen right now, coachmichaeltaylor.com. Now, specifically for the brothers out there who are watching, okay, because that's like yourself, Wayne, that's my primary goal, is to empower Black men. I have a site called shatterthestereotypes.com. And for Black men who are ready to dive into this personal development space, shatterthestereotypes.com is an ideal place for brothers to get resources for their transformation. I just completed filming a documentary called Shatter the Stereotypes, and it is going to be powerful. It is an opportunity for brothers to see, number one, what we're doing as Black men in society, which you generally don't see, but also to see what's possible for them. Because, you know, the media has said this thing about there's a lack of Black male role models forever. There's never been a lack of Black male role models. There's only been a lack of exposure of those role models. So the shatterthestereotypes.com is an opportunity for brothers to engage in this process that we're talking about, which is transformation.
Powerful stuff. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So let me ask, Michael, so do you feel the target audience for shatterthestereotypes.com is that midlife man, or do you believe that the age is
Ages
less
are
relevant?
I have young men from 18 to 75 that have, number one, I've got podcasts on there where I'm interviewing brothers from around the globe. I've got courses there. I've got, again, access to the upcoming movie, the books, and so forth. So it's for any Black man who's committed to his transformation.
Wonderful. I'm also a mom of a Black man, and so I'm always got those two ears going. Like, oh wait. Thank you so much, Kenneth. Today's conversation is so delectable, scrumptiously, deliciously, edibly, tasty, good. Woo! That's some good stuff right there. I don't know what you all think, but I think that that's some great stuff. Thank you all so much for joining us on this 60th episode of the Midlife Revolution Unleashed. Wayne,
Thank you,
tell
Judy
people
Brown,
how to
for
get in
joining
touch
too.
with yourself. I know you got some stuff going on. Wayne got some stuff going on.
Yeah.
What's going on, Wayne?
Yeah. Coach Michael, you stay awake many a night working, as do I. And I told Stacey that though we're taking our little bit of a break for Midlife Revolution Unleashed, we're not going anywhere per se. You'll be able to see repeats and go on your favorite podcast channels, YouTube, and catch us. Especially, we'll be replaying some of the more popular episodes. But I will be launching a podcast in the interim where I will be and making that announcement this before the week is done, just so that brothers will understand it's a place for often the unspoken brothers, the brothers who are carrying a load, that are wearing that hard cover, that skin, and are afraid to get out of the man box and become vulnerable. So what we're going to do is talk to these brothers about their issues and create a group, a safe group, a place where brothers can come together, hold one another up. And you'll hear a lot more about that in the days to come. Stacey, as we get out of here, how do people get in front of you and get some of that wonderful coaching that you offer?
Well, this beautiful community knows that I can be reached at thestaceymlewis.com. Certainly, if you are connected to us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or on YouTube, you are welcome to DM us. I am so excited, Wayne, about what you are doing. And Coach Michael, again, thank you so very much for joining us for this special episode. Wayne was right. We couldn't have had a greater guest.
Hey, Wayne, real quick, I want to throw something out at you. You said that I stay up late working.
Yes, sir.
I want you to change that. I never stay up late working. I stay up late creating.
Creating. I love it. I love it.
There's a difference.
I love it.
I'm just going to say, Coach Michael, Coach Wayne does not need encouragement right now, staying up late. The show up on the next day, for some of us is challenging. Yet I do love the reframe. We stay up late creating.
Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. Listen, if you want to reach out to me, hit viptransformativeliving.com. You'll see all my handles, social media, access, email, everything, or just DM me. Makes it easy squeezy. So we're going to connect with you in the near future. Stace, have yourself a marvelous summer. And Coach Michael, thank you, sir. We're looking forward to the releases. I got to get back to you, Michael. I need to get your latest book out in my library. I think I have the last 4, so I want to keep going.
I'm ready when you are, baby.
Yeah, I have to get a signed copy for my son. Something. I can't walk away empty-handed. It has been a joy and pleasure. Thank you all for checking out the Midlife Revolution Unleashed Season 2, Episode 60. It has been our blessing to serve you in this capacity and to spend this time with you. Michael, thank you so much. Coach Wayne, I'm sure I will see you before we start Season 3. It has been my joy to work with you.
Yeah, Michael, go no place. We're going to get you in the green room in a minute. Please hold. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
And there you have it, folks. This week's episode of the Midlife Revolution Unleashed. Hey, we truly appreciate your spending this time in this space with us. Join us next week at the same time as we dive into relevant topics and present solutions to spark new thinking and empower your midlife journey.
And don't forget, if you enjoyed today's episode, let us know in the comments and share it with others. And of course, remember to subscribe, share, like, hit that notification bell. You are the Midlife Revolution Unleashed. I'm Coach Stacey, and I'm cheering you on.
And I'm Coach Wayne, and I'll see you at the top.